Hi kid, and welcome to this KidTime story time.
You know, they say that no one's perfect, but I don't mind trying.
I think I'm pretty perfect already.
Well, Captain LaPlank, the perfect pirate, may take his pursuit of perfection just a little too far.
Sounds pretty perfect to me.
And this is written by Flibberty Gibbet, and I'm pretty sure that is his real name. Shall we, crew? Is this the beginning? Oh, yes, it is. I was perfectly on the first page. And the pirate LaPlank was so strict on his ship that he never forgave a mistake or a slip. Ooh, like the one I just made. He expected perfection, no ifs, ands, or buts. When it came to mistakes, even one made him nuts. Oh boy. The captain had kind of high standards for crew. If he could be perfect, then they could be too. All his crew had to do was to do as he did, since a single mistake meant him blowing his lid. Oh boy, that's a tough workplace. At the sight of his ship, other pirates would flip and decide it was wiser to steer clear of his grip. From Big Booty Bay, the whole way to Cape Cove, he'd clear out the waters wherever he'd rove. But wait, there's more. He would soak any folk caught beaching, asleep, and light up his cannons at night like a creep. And so he'd been chosen, some say out of fear, as Lake Buccaneer's Buccaneer of the Year. With his ship now equipped, he climbed up on a box that he liked to stand up on to heighten his talks. He called for the crew. They were new to his ship, so he laid down the law before launching the trip. I wonder what happened to the old crew. For treasures we sail, said LaPlank with a grin. But let me say something before we begin. I'm not much for mistakes, and I mean that sincerely. Any pirate who makes one will pay for it dearly. Oh yeah, you should look real worried. This guy, he doesn't look worried about anything at all. This guy, he can't even hear, so he's not going to worry. And this guy has a parrot on his head, so he's got other problems. He grabbed a longboard from the deck with a yank and fixed it in place on his ship as a plank. His pirates each took a quick step to the rear, since planks can be rather unsafe to be near. So you're eager to leave, said LaPlank to his crew. But this ship doesn't move until inspection is through. Now return to your spots, for you have nothing to fear, except for mistakes, to be painfully clear. Oh yeah, I think the man has made his point. Well, they did as he ordered. Then he took a minute to look in a chest and review what was in it. He gave a great grunt before closing the chest and commencing inspection with plenty of zest. I wonder what's in that trunk. Some kind of a mystery thing going on here. All right, can you see me? It needs to be perfect, or else I'm walking the plank. He checked on the masts, then he checked on the sails, but that was not all. He got down to details. He checked every knot. Then he checked every line by tugging and pulling, but found they were fine. He checked every cannon. He checked every ball. He checked every pistol. He checked every stack. Oh, wait. He checked every cannon. He checked every ball. He checked every pistol, but that was not all. He checked every barrel. He checked every sack. He checked every flag to make sure it was black. Oh boy, I think I'm messing up because I'm nervous about his pursuit of perfection. The crew watched him at work. Would he spot some mistake? The suspense grew more tense than lake pirates could take. They bit at their fingers. They sucked on their thumbs. They screamed for no reason. They called for their moms. But Captain LaPlank went on checking and checking without much concern for whose nerves he was wrecking, until at long last there was nothing unchecked, and he had to admit it. Why, things were correct. Whew. I'm breathing a sigh of relief for those poor guys calling for their mommies. He called for his pirates. He told them, well done. I could find no mistakes, 'cause in fact there were none. His crew then let loose with much hooting and squealing, and even some tears as the cheers they were feeling. Ahoy, said LaPlank. That old west wind is blowing, and so don't you suppose it's now time we get going? Make sail, he commanded. He brandished his sword and ran back and forth while his pirates rip-roared. Ah, yes, the merriment begins and we're going on the high seas, everyone. They sprang to the anchor and cranked it up fast and set every sail into place on its mast as the piper performed for the pirates at work while twirling and dancing and acting berserk. The sails filled the wind. Whoosh. The mainmast made a creak and their ship zipped away from that bay like a streak, while his crew at their post did their duty so well that their captain felt happy, though no one must tell. The weather was splendid. They sailed in the sun, and there weren't any blunders except for the one. LaPlank was astounded. He found it concerning. The sniffer could whiff it. Their burgers were burning. He turned to the cook, and the look that he gave him soon made it clear that now nothing could save him. Mistake! Cried the captain. He threw down his hat, and the trampling he gave it soon made that hat flat. The cook looked around. He decided to hide, but barrels are narrow while pirates are wide. To the blank, said the captain. He captured the cook and booted his bottom each step that he took. They stood at the blank. Would the cook be corrected? The captain glanced down at the chest he'd inspected. He lifted the lid, and inside there were vests, which every fine captain provides for their guests. He took the cook's coat and the hat from his head, and then lent him a vest to go floating instead. Well, at least there's a life vest. Kerplunk! He was dunked, and then left there to bob, which is no way to go your first day on the job. The crew was afraid. They all shivered and shook and shedded some tears at the canning of cook. I like my burgers burnt. Enough of mistakes, called the captain to crew, who returned to their duties, as crewmen will do. The weather stayed splendid. They sailed in the sun, and there were no more blunders except for the one. Oh no, who did a mistake? Oh no. LaPlank was astounded. He frowned at the deck. It should have been spotless, but there was a speck. The swabby's top job was to keep the ship clean, and specks on his deck made the captain get mean. Mistake, said the captain. The swabby said sorry, but his boss wasn't fond of his I'm sorry story. From his chest he selected a vest from the top. Oh, here we go. Which he handed the swabby instead of the mop. Goodbye, swabby. We barely knew ye. Kerplunk! He was dunked. Then the ship sailed away, and he shrank to a speck in the rearview display. Enough of mistakes, called the captain to crew, who returned to their duties, as crewmen will do. Poor guy, swabby, just bobbing out there. Maybe he can go connect with the cook, and they can go bob onto an island somewhere and burn some burgers together. Well, the weather stayed splendid. They sailed in the sun, and there were no more blunders, except for the one. Oh, yeah. Once again, LaPlank was astounded. To starboard, he'd said. So why was the ship of his porting instead? He yelled for his helmsman, whose duty was steering, and who wore a big horn in each ear for his hearing. Oh, it's the deaf guy. Mistake! Cried the boss. His helmsman said, Sonny? Which his boss did not hold, on the whole, to be funny. He unhorned his helmsman like that in a flash, and then lent him a vest to help soften the splash. Kerplunk! He was dunked, and then left there to simmer, for the helmsman was not a strong, long-distance swimmer. Enough of mistakes! Called the captain to crew, who returned to their duties, as crewmen will do. Oh, no, not the poor helmsman. But, well, the blunders kept coming. Their numbers grew bigger. He was giving out vests to the crew with some vigor. Kerplunk, they were dunked. Some may find this surprising, but it looked like that lake might have actually been rising. The pirates all tried to not anger LaPlank, but their minor mistakes made the captain a crank. His crew he'd all booted, excluding their piper, who had grown so scared he was wearing a diaper. Poor guy. Well, you can just fly away. You're in luck, buddy. But his piping was perfect. He'd nothing to dread, except that their captain kept losing his head. Well, that's significant. The captain looked frantic. He'd far too much work after booting his crew like some kind of a jerk. He did all the cooking, the cleaning, the steering in a fearsome display of extreme buccaneering. His new problem was jobs. He had rather too many. But then, where was the fun? He was not having any. That's right, because you're extreme buccaneering, which sounds like a reality show. While the captain was acting as crew for his ship, because he has no choice, his piper's fine fingers just happened to slip. The piper fell silent while over the boat there rang out the sound of a slightly wrong note. "Mistake!" said the captain, unlatching that chest before reaching inside to retrieve his vest. When his fingers found nothing inside except air, all the captain could do was to bend down and stare. His stomach did cartwheels, his heart hopped a beat, and his shoulders dipped so low that they touched both his feet. That poor piper kept quiet, while the tension now mounted. That chest was unvested, 'cause her captain miscounted. Oh! Mistake! You made a mistake! Ha ha ha! Now the peg leg is on the other leg. He'd blundered their numbers like some kind of dummy, which must have been why all his feelings were crummy. A disaster had happened on Buccaneer Lake. That mad captain himself had just made a mistake. In the midst of his madness, the captain stopped short, for he'd thought up some notion that brought up a snort. All the bunglers before were now very much wetter, for their captain had called for his crew to do better. But he hadn't himself, which soon set him to thinking, what happens to captains when they do the stinkin'? What rot, LaPlank thought. A ship captain's misacting? It was crew who made boo-boos. A captain's exacting. Oh, so he thinks he can't make mistakes. Well, that was his first mistake. His confusion now grew. Are you captain or chump? He asked of himself as he scratched at his stump. So he thought without stopping, smoke shot out each ear, till the facts of the matter at last became clear. It had nothing to do with ship captains and crews. Perfection's not something that pirates can choose. They bungled their business, but those are the breaks. Mistakes are just something that everyone makes. Oh ho 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 ho. He's had a revelation. Uh-oh, said LaPlank. He looked over his ship, which had shedded more pirates the longer their trip. LaPlank looked around at this empty old deck and considered Perfection's less pleasant effects. That's right, perfection is good. That's the attempt for perfection is good, but the punishment for lack of perfection, not so pleasant. Reverse course, LaPlank ordered. I don't know who he's ordering. He snapped a salute and whipped his ship around to shoot back up their route. He rescued his crew, then he cooked them some cocoa and promised mistakes wouldn't make him go loco. Well, that is a welcome change of heart. See, even cranky Captain LaPlank is capable of personal growth. And that oath was no joke. The mad captain had changed from that prickly old stickler who'd grown so deranged. Deck specks and burned burgers still happened sometimes, but mistakes of all kinds did not rate as great crimes. He'd shrug and remind them that Those are the breaks. Mistakes are just something that everyone makes. And that nasty old plank? Well, it was now much adored, for it found a new use as the high diving board. Kerplunk splash! Oh, and that was the saga on the high seas of Captain LaPlank.
Arr! I love this story because it says that making mistakes is okay, but you should still try to be as perfect as possible, as barely possible.
Is that what you got from that green bear?
Yes, because as you know,
Yes, I do know that you like a certain amount of perfection.
yes, I like to try to do things perfect every time, but I can give myself a break if I make a mistake.
And that applies to your crew.
Yes, and my friends and my family too.
It doesn't apply to me. I forgive no one.
Well, I think in this case you should be more like Green Bear and the new and improved Captain LaPlank than you know who. See you next time, kid, on the always perfect Kid Time Story Time. Except when I make mistakes, which happens sometimes because I'm reading so many words.